makers. This is Mary ROONEY, prop master at Arizona Broadway Theater. It's Makers Mondays. We're gonna make some art journals today out of just regular old journals. I went to the store and I went to only like the dollar store or the 99-cent store, and I found some blank books. These are little hardbound books that could easily make a fun little artsy journal, maybe even a gift for somebody. Look at all of them that I bought. I also found composition books. Those make good journals, all decorated. I found these. These are just, they're all blank books. They've got lines in them usually. These have little elastic bookmarks. Hold them shut. And so usually what I like to do with decorating a book is adding some texture with glue and then paint, or just paint. You know, it depends on the book, depends on how I feel. So I thought what I'd do is show you a few that I've finished, and then we will finish some today, and I'll show you a little bit about some techniques of painting and things you can add to your books. So, first thing, let me show you some. This book started out like this. I took the elastic off, and then I put on a layer of my glue, my white flexible glue, whether that be Mod Podge, school glue, glue all, anything like that. I painted a layer of glue on, and look, I took these little paper cupcake cuppy thingies and I glued it on. So once the glue is on your book, I use the brush and I glue it on, stick it down, and then I do another layer of glue to kind of encase it. All right. A technique, by the way, is called decoupage. So whenever you're gluing and then covering it with glue, paper to paper usually, it's called decoupage. So there is a fancy little decoupage book with no color that I painted on it. I just loved the way that the color shone through the cups. So there's a book. This one, again, was one of these guys that I took the elastic off, and I painted it, and I added, this is lace that I added. Anything that you can find that adds texture, once you cover it up, no one knows what it is. So it kind of looks like gold leafing or something. And if you can see, I also did some gears, little gears, so it kind of looks a little steampunky, I thought. That was kind of fun. And it's starting to look a little old-fashioned, isn't it? It looks more like leather. I love this paint, the way that you can put it on in different colors, and then it looks like leather. Here's a cute little book. I painted it pink. And then I added a paper doily, one of these guys. I painted the doily and then I put it on with glue. You know what though, now that I look at it, this white doily against the pink would look really cool, just white. And all I would do again is do a layer of glue, stick on the doily, and glue this on. Cover it all with glue, decoupage it. Isn't that fancy and cute? It's very pretty. Here's a little sweet one. This one, look, you can see, it was one of those alligator books, and then we painted it. I'll show you how to do this little sponge painting. And then I added a couple of little doodads. Isn't that fun? Oh, here's a funny one. This jar is full of little cloth triangles. And they are from, like many of you, I'm sure, I am making masks in my spare time, fabric masks, and I like to cut the corners before I turn them inside out because I make them two layered. And I started to look at all these corners and think, really pretty, I might be able to do something with those someday. And look what I did. I glued them, I decoupaged them onto the cover of this book. And then I put a layer of glue on it again, and it's kind of like a quilt, you know, they all kind of match, sort of. I tried to place them on where there wasn't any other fabric. I didn't make too many layers. And But how fun is that? It's nice and colorful, just out of scraps. Let's see. Oh, here's one of those composition books. And if you watched last week's episode, we made feathers. Well, here's a feather that's now being a bookmark. So I just tied it to a string. And then a cute little message. A doodad on there. It says pause here. I thought that would be cool. You pause to reflect and write your reflections in the book, like a journal. Here's the start of a spells book. And this one, I glued, just basic wooden letters, flat wooden letters on. And then I painted it all black, and then I added these colors. We'll do a little bit more adding so we can finish this up. It's a little spells book. And again, this is just hot glue. The texture is only hot glue. So I did the hot glue, made it a little design, and then I painted it a couple of different colors. And then I added my little metallic paints, which I love. But look how cool that is. It's kind of like, it looks almost like metal, doesn't it? And it's kind of cool that you can just rub it on and rub it off, sort of. And that's cool. So I have a lot of books to show you. I'm going to show you some techniques now of how I got to these books. Let's do something really simply, is just having your book, your blank book, and adding fabric to it. That's really the most simple thing to do. And what you would do is you'd lay your fabric over your book. Pick a fun fabric that is cool to look at, and cut it slightly bigger than your book. And you can see I've already glued this part and trimmed it. But this is what you're gonna do. It's real easy, just the same decoupage as always. Technique. You're gonna take your glue, not sure if you can see it, paint it in there, paint it all over. And it is better probably, now that I think of it, to make sure and remember to put your wax paper between the cover and its pages. Then you don't get your pages all stuck. Okay. And then, remember, you're gonna squish it all down. It's not too gluey yet, so you can do this without getting your hands too messy. And don't forget, add another layer. Squish it on in there. And then I'm gonna do that for the whole book. This book is nice because it opens up, but I usually do one side at a time, just so that it can get all squished on there nicely. And once it dries, then you'll be able to trim it. Now that's just pretty easy to trim. So I'm gonna lay this one aside. Over there. Here is another texture instead of fabric. Look at this, paper towel. It's just a paper towel. And what I love about the paper towel is, again, when you paint it different colors, this one has maroon and a little bit of brown. And look at the texture. It's starting to look like leather. I love that. It's kind of squishing and wrinkling a little bit. And once it's dry, like this one is, this is when you would trim it. You go ahead and just cut as close as you can. Sometimes you need to turn it over maybe to get a little closer. And then it'll just come away. See? You got it all trimmed up. So there's lovely paper towels. I do so many things in the prop world with paper towels. Do you know what it makes the best of? Lettuce. Fake lettuce. It looks so awesome when you paint it with some glue and some green and wrinkle it a little. Looks just like lettuce. So there we go. That's the trimmed up version. More texture, more glued on. So we've got fabric covering. As I told you, we have the doilies. Those are easy to glue on. Now let's do some painting. So this spells book, we're gonna add, I love the black because it shows lots of different other colors. So I'm just gonna dabble a couple of these. This Lumiere by Jacquard. I'm just gonna rub it on, get it on there. I don't worry about covering it too much, like it just doesn't need a lot. You know, in fact, you can actually rub it a little bit too, as it's wet. Okay. And then maybe I'm gonna add, it dries pretty quickly. The green. I love the green, just a little taste of it. The more layers of paint you do, the more interesting it starts to look. And again, I don't try to do the whole thing. I want little splotches of color. That. It's starting to look like the rest of the book. And maybe one other color. For some reason, I tend to choose about 3 colors for just about everything I paint. It adds a little depth to it. And we'll just, this one you can even like brush across your letters a little. Kind of blending. It's called a wet blend when it blends with the other wet paint. That's looking a little bit too gold, so I'm going to add, just take a little bit of rubbing off of it. Now it's starting to look a little, you can see my little fingerprint. There we go. That's looking kind of like an old spell book. If you want to, you can even add, grabbing my black paint. Really subtle. See how I've done it on, I'm not sure if you can see it, but on the bottom corners. Corners. Make it look worn. Edges. Sometimes the edges of books get worn more than the others. Same with the corners. And then I can rub it a little, just really lightly. There, look at the spells book. And that's exactly what I did, whoa, with this metallic book, metallic looking. Taking the paper off for you to show it a little bit nicer. There, look at that. Cool. Let's do one more. This little guy, this little pink one. All right, I'm going to show you how to do a little sponge painting. This one, again, I try to choose 3 colors. Well, one of the 3 is going to be what I painted the book to begin with. So I started by painting at least 2 layers of just pink paint. And when I was looking at it, then I'm like, oh, it's kind of boring. What should I do with it? And that's when I came up with adding some different colors. So I have my palette. This time it's a paper plate palette. I have some kind of pinky colors. The rest of this paint is not wet, so I can add whatever I want. You don't need a lot. And one more color, this weird beige I'm going to do. So if you can see, I've got pink, sort of a magenta, and beige. It all goes together. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my sponge. Usually it's better if it's a little damp, a little wet, not real wet, but this one's kind of dry, so I'm just gonna do it the way it is. Let's find a clean book. I've got my wax paper in there. And here's the thing, is you want to get, let's start with this little pink, most of it off your sponge. So I take it and when I can see the texture really nicely and not too glommy, if you want to call it that, that's what I'm going to do with this. I try not to push enough that you can actually see the shape that you've done. And I just kind of very lightly dab it on. I'm going to add some more. See, now I'm going to go back to the place that I took it off of and keep going with that until I run out of this, till it dries. Okay. And the thing is that if it gets too, like if I start going around and I get too heavy with it, that's why I have this light pink again. I can go back to the light pink, kind of just erase it. It sort of blends it a little too, if it's wet. And so I'm gonna give it a little bit of texture everywhere, just a little, with the magenta. And if you notice this one, I have darker around the edges and then it gets lighter. So maybe I'll start making that shape of an oval. Just kind of what they call pouncing it, sort of pouncing the sponge. Those corners. I want a little bit in the center, so I'm, kind of moving it around a little. Pounce, pounce, pounce. And then I'm going to add my beige. Again, if I want it not so dark, I go back to my pink. Kind of erases it. You can just keep doing that until you get a lovely shape that you want. Let's put pink up here, down here. Okay. Spongy, spongy, spongy. You can just pounce it off of anything, as long as you have your surface covered, so you can pounce it onto anything you want. Oh, see, I'm kind of getting this little frame here. I really like that. I need a little bit more beige. I like the beige. And then, once that dries, which it wouldn't take too long, is when you're going to add your little baubles, the little bits. I have these things. What's holding this little sign on is a brad. And they poke through, and then you fold them. And how you would poke them, let me find a little sign first. Let's see, here's one that says Best Friends. Let's take that one. And put it on. And you get kind of a sharp, pointy thing. I have this thing called an awl. It's very sharp. Figure out where you want to put it, and then start by poking it just slightly so you can see where you want to poke the hole better. So I got 2 holes there. I want to open the book a little bit. I'm going to keep my fingers away from where it would go in and make the hole a bit bigger. Same with this one. Alright, now I've got my Best Friends. And I've got these brads. Let's do yellow this time. Oh, yellow. So, line it up with the holes. Put it through the hole. And then on the other side, I can unfold it basically and squish it down. That's going to hold it on there. So there we go. There's a sponge painted, and then I did like, I had some of these little stickers. Now I probably would want to hot glue these permanently because these are little sticky things, but maybe I'll put one right here. That's cute and sweet. Now this book needs another coat on the back, but once this dries, you can always paint the other side. So there's some very quick techniques of how to paint books and cover them. I'm looking for my one that had the paper towel on it. So the same way that you did the sponge painting here is how you make it look like leather. You just pick leathery looking colors like brown, maroon, and you can either sponge it on, or you can, as it's wet, just add more color and blend it that way, just all around. The more shades of things you have, the better it looks like leather. So, there's some art journal ideas. Kind of fast and furious today. Here's the finished one. And please, please, again, use your imagination. Tell me what you came up with, and show us in the comments. Thanks.